Hey, welcome back to Frank's Model Works. I'm Frank. It's been a while. I don't even remember where I was in the weathering series. I'm pretty sure the last time we put a base coat of mahogany on the chassis of the 71 Mach 1 Mustang, and then we put hairspray as a chipping medium, and then chipped back the flat black, and then put a barrier coat over that, if I'm not mistaken. So in this episode, what we're going to do is we're going to start applying washes. We're going to go over different types of washes, why I use the types of washes that I use specifically. I tend to use oil paint or enamel washes. I'll get into why I use them when I show you everything. And then we're going to apply some pigments to make some nice crusty, crunchy rust on the chassis. And when that's done, we're going to seal it all in with some clear coat. It's going to be a fun episode. Stick around. First up, we're going to be applying a sludge wash to the chassis and all the parts that we base coated in mahogany and then chipped, that whole good stuff. You know, be sure to check out part 1 of the video series, folks. Otherwise, none of this makes sense. I mean, for me, it doesn't make sense anyway, because I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. But check out the first part. Okay. I am going to start with ivory black, which is what I usually start with. A pea-sized, maybe a little bit bigger. Let's call that a lima bean. What do you say? Lima bean sized application of the ivory black oil paint from Winsor & Newton. To that, I'm going to add, let's get this on here nice. If you see inside of there's that's linseed oil. You can put that on a piece of cardboard to wick it away, especially if you're going to be painting with oil paint. For this application, it's not super necessary to do that, but later on, if when I go over filters, you might want to do that. The linseed oil is basically gonna just mix with the mineral spirits anyway, so it's not super important to do it now. But to create the sludge wash, I'm gonna use some of the matte effect thinner. I think this has it's some type of flattening agent in it. It might just be talc, but honestly, I'm just using it because the bottle's almost done. And I'm not going to buy another bottle of it, if it's even still available, until I know that there's, you know, I'm done with this one. So, and you just mix it up. Create a sludge, a slurry. Now, the way I do it, I don't completely and totally dissolve the pea-sized bit of oil paint, because I will dip the brush into that and then spread that around. So what you're doing with a sludge wash is you're actually affecting the character of whatever finish you have underneath. And there are some pretty cool effects that you can achieve. Later on, when I do I'm gonna actually paint the body and weather it to show you what a sludge wash really does and how it affects the color. So, you grab a big brush, and you're gonna see the effects of the sludge wash immediately, because the first thing I'm going to do is get that stainless steel tank. Now look at what I'm doing. Does that look like what is this guy doing? It's all part of the process. I'm going to make sure I get that over everything that I applied. Now, if you remember, we did put a barrier coat of Aqua Gloss Clear over this. And this sludge wash is not really, you're not really going to dig in too deep. It's not really going to be a problem for that. Now, what's cool about oil paints is that you can brush them on and wipe them off. If you ever want to go down a rabbit hole of, I'll provide some links to some other content creators on YouTube that will astound you. Also keep in mind, although I use oil paints and enamels thin with mineral spirits, by no means is that the only way. You could make an acrylic washes. There's a way to do it. Now, you see that? Wiping it away, but it's imparting a depth to it and like a globalized effect to it. I'm just gonna wipe this away. You can use regular paper towel. I'm using the science wipes that I always do. You can use regular paper towel for it. Just try to make sure that you don't use the edges, because the edges could fray and you'll wind up with lint in there. So, as you can see, and you're saying to yourself, this isn't really doing that much. Relax. There's a process. So this is just the first step. Okay. Most of it gets wiped away, and I'm wearing gloves for this because it does stain. So let's do another one. Let me show you what a pin wash will do. So I'm just picking up some of that. So that would be like a pin wash right there. So the problem with a pin wash, as opposed to a sludge, a pin wash brings with it the possibility of tide marks. That might be unintended or not necessarily. Now, in the case of this gas tank, I want this to be a little bit dirty. I want it to look a little beat up. Just that I want it to look like it's a used vehicle. It's a vehicle that gets driven. So, you see the effect over here by the straps for the, you know, like it's basically you're creating something that collects grime, and anything on the underside of a car is going to collect some grime. So it's going to get into all the nooks and crannies, and though it's not really visible on the black parts of the car, on the black parts of the chassis, we're gonna do something in a little bit to affect that. I'm just brushing that on to get it in there. Slapping it in there. And then now I'm not really digging in to get rid of this stuff. Although that is something that you can do. You do have a little, you have to be a little bit careful Because if you really do dig in with the tissue, you could affect the barrier coat. But we're creating damage, so it's not a primary concern. Now I'm going to hit this with a hairdryer right now. See if I can make it dry. Something that you notice with gloss paint tends to look more darker than flat paint. The same paint itself, if you spray clear flat onto it, or in this case, it might appear lighter. It has to do with refraction. It has to do with refraction. It's all very scientific, which means I don't understand it. Okay. Now, the thing with oil paint is that even though I just hit that with a hairdryer, I could still probably wipe every single bit of it off if I really wanted to. The way you really lock in oil paint is by spraying clear over it, and I use all clad enamel clears over my weathering to lock it in. So we have affected the character of this chassis. So now what I'm going to do is we're going to add a dust wash. Where'd that go? Is this it? Dust. You could mix this using, if you just want to get the Winsor and Newton, you could mix this with white. The problem is, you know, unless you're really good at mixing colors, you're chasing it. And I like the Abteilung. For me, it's worth the investment. And this I could just add mineral spirits to and use it. They also make, let me see if I can grab it. Abteilung makes this stuff. It's called Magic Potion for brushes. When I clean my brushes, if I'm using water-based acrylic, I'll clean it with water. If I'm using any enamel, lacquer, or in this case oil paints, I'll first clean it out with lacquer thinner, which can, you know, like, it could be harmful to the brush, but then I then clean the brush immediately with this stuff. This stuff smells like turpentine. It smells like turpentine. I like that smell. And it also has like conditioners and like almost like shampoo for the hairs of the brush. It's really, really good stuff. I like it a lot. So even if you don't buy any of this weathering stuff, just for your paintbrushes, this is worth getting. It's really good for your brushes. Keep them going a long, long time. So the dust itself, you'll notice it's skewing more towards like concrete, as if and the reason why I'm using it is because maybe it's being driven on the interstate system where the roads are concrete and not necessarily blacktop. So we'll keep that little goop right there to do our sludging with. So now, keep an eye on this, what it looks like now. And then once we do the sludge wash. Ready? Here we go. Right now, this is reminding me of when I was a kid trying to paint the monogram pilots that came in the 1/48 scale planes. This is basically what their faces would look like. I didn't know what I was doing. Get that in there, get that in there, get that in there. That over here. Okay. Now that that's on there, you could wait for this to dry if you want. It doesn't really matter. You're wiping most of it away, but it does change the character of, and there's subtlety. So now this, I don't want to have a directional characteristic to this. So I'm going to do this. And I am going to want to get almost all of this off. This is just going to be the hint. Almost as if I dry brushed, but not really. We're going to get most of this out of here. You can do a very careful application, but for me this is fun. Like doing it this way. I enjoy doing it this way. Might not necessarily be the most efficient or materially effective, but it's fun. I want to share my fun. And if you're finding yourself not being able to get into nooks and crannies, you could reapply a dark wash. You'd be surprised the amount of realism and verisimilitude you can pull out of methods like this. They might not look great while you're doing them, but use real, like actual reference photos. Go look at the real thing and see how it rusts, see where dust collects, see how things weather, and then allow that to inform your decisions. And then you're also going to have to realize that you want a uniformity of the effect between everything that's going to be in this area. So you're going to want the suspension and the bottom of the engine, the exhaust, to exude these things that you're trying to impart. And we're just trying to get most of the stuff out. Let's get a brush in there. So the effect that we're going for here is that this is dust that's accumulating in the nooks and crannies of the chassis. And again, like I said, you can be more meticulous in your application, but I actually, I do it this way because I enjoy it this way. I like the way that you can just remove oil paint. Like you could just make it almost like it never happened, and I don't know, just something about that I enjoy. So your sludge washers could absolutely positively be neater than this. It's just I like doing it this way. So there. And also keep in mind, once I hit this with flat, clear flat, and I'm by no means am I even close to done with this chassis, it's gonna look if I don't say so myself. Pretty cool. There's something that, one of the reasons why I want to show you guys and gals how I do weathering is because the most fun part of this entire process is the application of the clear flat. It's so cool, especially the one that I use, because it dries really fast, and you'll be able to watch the results. I'm going to try to set the camera up so that you can just watch the entire character of this change. So now this is what we have now. You can see that there's a different character overall to the chassis, and that might get refined in the steps. What I'm going to do is I'm going to apply off camera the sludge washes to the parts that need them, and I'll come back and I'll show you pin washes, particularly as they're going to pertain to the engine, the exhaust, because on this car this story that I'm going with is that the engine's been worked over, so it looks fairly decent. The exhaust is new, and parts of the suspension have been returned to stock, because when whoever owns the car now, when he bought it, it was set up for like street racing, or almost like street and strip, and the new owner returned it to stock. So that's the story I'm going for. So when I come back, I'll have everything that's going to be getting a sludge wash will be done, and then I'll show you how to do a pin wash. Alright, so hold on. Sludge wash has been applied to just about everything that's going to be getting a sludge wash. I'm going to continue now with pin washes. Before I do that, I wanted to show you one of the reasons why I like sludge washes and the effect that it can create. This is the front seat as it's painted and with a barrier coat on it. A little bit of detail painting in there for the that little silver medallion that goes into the seat. The detail is not very deep on the seats, but with the application of a sludge wash, you could see a very, very slight difference in depth and character. Hopefully it's showing up on camera, especially in this crease over here. You could see, but you could also see it more from the back. Now this is stuff that's generally not going to be super visible, but it is visible. You can see it if you look for it, and it's one of those things where you'll know it's there, and you'd be surprised if people are looking at your models. They might look for stuff like this and be impressed when they see, well, he went to the trouble of making, or he or she went to the trouble of making sure that there's depth and character to the finish. And there's all kinds of, like, they must have had a party in the house behind me last night, because there is ashes all over the place. I don't know, it's like a wildfire happened last night. So when you apply the sludge wash, it does get a little sticky, so it attracts particulates in the air. You got to be careful before you apply the clear, that you got yourself a nice clean part. Otherwise you'll wind up with little pieces of ash and cinder, and it's a shame. So this is the unwashed part, this is the washed part. So what I'm just trying to show you is the difference that the wash can make. So this, again, this is the one that has a wash. This one's ever so slight, the difference in depth, and you're trying to create the appearance of three-dimensionality rather than just a straight up painted part. You're trying to add a depth of realism. The word that I use so often is verisimilitude, and you could see it there. I mean, this won't be seen because this is up against the the wall of the car, but you could see how that the wash, and it, you know, in a visible area, you're gonna see this more than you would otherwise. So let's move. I'm gonna just know that as far as the interior goes, I'm gonna be doing this to the side panels also, just to get that little bit of extra. And then the finish on this won't necessarily be flat. I want to test and see. It might be semi-matte with just the lightest amount of sheen to it, because I want it to look like it's something that's taken care of, but old. And once we have some results, final results on that, I will show you what those look like. All right. So let's move on to pin washes. Pin washes are the tactical. If you think of sludge washes as strategic, it's a wide. You're trying to affect a wide area. You're trying to impart a textural quality to a large area. For example, this chassis. Now, this has had sludge washes of black, the dust color, and a little bit of the pre-made streaking grime put in there. So now this has been going for, I think I did this not last night, the night before. You could come in and watch. You could just, it'll pull away still. That's what I like about oil paints, is that you can work them and keep adjusting and fixing and changing it until you lock it in with clear coat. So if you have areas where you don't like the effect that you're getting, you can change it right up until the point that you lock it in with clear. So you got time. See, like, I could take away all of that dust from there, reapply, and keep going. And this is actually believe it or not, it's fun to do this. This is not there's some parts of modeling that I almost like, believe me, even the worst parts of modeling, I'd rather be doing that than anything else. But some things sometimes feel like a chore. But this, to me, is fun. I enjoy doing this. So we got this. Pop in here. And you could just wipe it away. It just comes right off. Now, it's not like I can just erase this as if it never happened. It would take a lot of work, but I'm not doing that. So I'm liking the way this is going. And you begin to develop a feel for how it's going to look. And like I said before, the thing that you're going to look forward to is when you're going to hit this with the clear coat and watch it pop, because it's exactly what it's going to do. It's almost like, you know, you ever see those folks that do like the brush strokes on, like, they like basically painting glue onto a canvas, and they're like dancing around, like you see it on America's Got Talent. They're like dancing around doing that stuff, and then at the end, the final reveal, they throw dirt or like a black chalk at the painting, and it's a painting of one of the judges or whatever it is. That's almost like this. Like you see, what you see is not necessarily what you're going to wind up with, and you develop a feel after a while that you know what this is going to look like when the clear hits it, and it is such a cool feeling. So I'm very excited for all of you to see that. So let me shut up, because I'm rambling on. I already saw that this video is well up over an hour, and like I said, I don't care. I'm trying to impart knowledge, so if you're interested, stick around. So I had done the bottom side of the engine. Now if you look there's a little bit of weathering in here. Nobody's ever going to see this because this is going to be tucked up into the transmission tunnel. But I put a little bit of a sludge wash. The bottom of the engine is going to be a lot dirtier than the top, just by nature of the fact that gravity, grime is going to fall down and it's going to get kicked up onto the underside of the engine. But I did do a little bit on the carburetor, if you could see. This is the kit carburetor. This is really nice. Kudos to Revell. For a kit carburetor, that's really, really nice. I did add a wash into the recesses over here. If you see, there's a little stud sticking out of the top. That's because I want to be able to have because this carburetor is so nice, I want to be able to take the air cleaner off and display it if I want to. So I'm going to turn it over and you see a totally different experience. Now, when you're looking at this, here's the good thing. This is what I like about. This is a totally. Is this brush dry? Yeah. Well, here's one that I know is dry. You can push oil paints around without even thinner and affect the character. If you get tide marks, you can wash them out. You can see that little bit right there. Watch. You could just work on it and it'll disappear. In the case of enamels, you can do the same thing, and you can accomplish that with enamels, but you might need to use mineral spirits in order to do it. Not necessarily pooling it on, but you dip the brush in mineral spirits, you wick away some of the moisture, and then you do that, and you'll be able to accomplish that with enamels. All right, so far I like the underside of the engine, the way it's starting to look, and I think it's really gonna pop when I hit it with the flat. I didn't mess with the oil filter too much because, you know, those get changed fairly often. I know they get dirty, but I didn't want to mess with it for the real reason. If you want to know, this thing's popped off like 6 times while I was so I don't feel like gluing it on again, so I'm just not going to touch it. So now I have added the wash into these recesses. You got to be careful, and this is why one of the reasons why I use the matte effect thinner on a gloss, especially a dark color like this blue. You want to be able to see where you've applied it already, so you could see where you want to remove it from. Dark gloss colors, the reflectivity will hide what you've already done. At least to my eyes. My eyes are garbage. I'm starting to lose it. So that's why I do it that way. I don't want to lock it in with the clear coat and then have, oh, look at that, there's a big gigantic stupid glob of oil paint there that I missed, which has happened to me before, because then you gotta figure out a way to clean it up. The blue itself is, this one is enamel. This is MCW Paints Ford Blue enamel with their hardener thinned with Mr. Color Leveling Thinner. Goes on really, really nice. You could even prime. You could prime this, and this was actually primed in black, and it'll go over really, really nice. That stuff has nice coverage qualities. So the the exhaust manifolds are painted in Testers Metallizer Burnt Iron. Yeah, burnt iron. And you're gonna get, I bought a bunch of these back when they were still available. Other paint manufacturers have substitutes for it. It goes on a little dark. and occasionally I'll mix it with burnt metal, which will bring out almost this this coppery quality. This'll look different once I hit it with the clear, but a wash, this very much benefits from a wash. So we changed the character of it. So what I'm going to do is shut up and start applying the pin wash. Like before with the Tamiya, I'm going to be using a very long, thin brush. And I'm going to come in, get some of that on there. And I'm going to get in here. Now you see it running? I love that. I love when it does that, watch. When it just runs across like that. That is great. I love that. So what you're seeing is it adds a little bit of depth. And it's subtle. You know, it's not this big high contrast. I'm looking for subtlety when I'm doing a pin wash. I'm looking for subtlety, depth that adds dimensionality to what I'm working on. Okay, so we've outlined that valve cover. Now we're going to come in and we're going to do the ribs. Let's get the outline of this breather. See that run around like that? And there's going to be a vacuum line that comes out of here. The reference photo that I have had this as a vacuum line, so there's going to be a vacuum line coming out of here. I got to check the routing. Make sure I've done that. I've screwed up in the past. Well, no, I'm not a mechanic. I know that's a distributor, that's a carburetor, that's an intake manifold, these are valve covers, the heads are underneath, exhaust manifolds, water pump. But I don't know how to build an engine, sorry. I can install your phone line. I can build the telecommunications network in your neighborhood. But I ain't a mechanic. So now, let's make sure we get that in there. Notice there's some pooling. The beauty of that is not necessarily, what we're going to do is not necessarily wipe that away, wait for it to dry and wipe it away. We're going to push it around and work it into the ribs. Get over here. That nice. Do this. Wick some of it away. So push that around. Now here's another thing we can do. I keep a hairdryer because for this purpose, it's also good for the Aqua Gloss Clear, the barrier coat that I used on this. You hit it with a hairdryer, and you can basically start working with it, or add more appropriately, add the next layer of it. See, I got the fuel lines for the double pumper. I used a fitting from Detail Master at the back of the carb and the front of the carb, and the fuel line goes down to the fuel filter. I generally don't plumb from the fuel filter back to the gas tank. I generally don't do that, but I will do from the filter up here. Like I said, folks, I aim for the appearance of reality, not true realism. People, I don't have that talent. I just don't have it, and I don't have the patience to develop it as a skill. So I'm happy with what I do, and I get my enjoyment. So for S's and G's, let's just push this away with a brush, see what happens. It's not working too well. Let's get the swab. So in that case, we've imparted depth to the valve covers. I don't want to sludge the exhaust manifolds because they keep falling off. I mean, I am a klutz, don't get me wrong, but maybe I'll do it this way. I'll sludge it a little bit and allow it to dry and see how it looks. There we go, get some sludge on there. that time to dry a little bit, and we will move on to other stuff. I got to get the alternator, get a little bit of wash in there to add some depth to it. Really, really nicely molded kit. Really beautiful. Nice stuff, Revell. Excellent work. Appreciate it. Decent value for the money. I should actually be more. It's actually outstanding value for the money. Particularly when sometimes I get charged the same price as I paid for this kit for something that was molded before my parents were married. But I'm not gonna comment on economic realities. Whatever. I like this, that's for sure. This is, if they keep coming out like this, your pal Frank's gonna be a happy fella. So this will be done. Get a little depth here. I believe this is power steering pump. That's the fan. I know that. That's the alternator. I think that's the power steering pump. Tired. Alright. Leave that a little shiny. Here's the steering box. That's painted in magnesium with some details picked out. Short steering shaft. So then if we just add a little bloop in there, we've imparted some depth. Get it here. There's a junction there. You see that? That little shadow I just placed in. I'll put another one here. Boom. You're adding shadows where there weren't any before. If you want to refine it, you're not happy with the way it looks, take a brush. Like I might have hit a little bit too much here. Well, it's gone. Like it never happened. So you got a little shadow on that steering shaft. Let's get a little bit of the tide away. So now you see you've imparted a little bit of depth to the piece. We'll put that over there so I can lose it. And we continue. Got little springs here in the hood hinges. Get a little depth. And these will pop once you now, is anybody going to be I look for it. Yeah, I got to be honest with you. If I notice, I don't like think less of somebody if they didn't add it, but I think more of somebody if they did. I'm like, wow, he went for it. He or she went for it. So we get a little depth in that spring. That's ready for clear. There's the other spring. A hair of my dog is in this little tin right there. I love you, Munson, but your hair is everywhere, bud. My dog is half Shar-Pei, half Beagle. He is immensely cute. He, if you play a harmonica, he howls and sings along with you. Like, we were worried, because, you know, my daughter had the harmonica and he would start doing it. And at first we were worried that the sound was hurting his ears. But his tail is wagging the entire time that he's howling. So it's almost as if he's enjoying it. Even the low, at first we thought, oh, maybe it's the high notes hurt his ears. Nope. He just singing along. We Googled it and everything. It's 'cause they just might make him happy. So he likes doing it. When he sees, as soon as he sees the harmonica, he starts wagging his tail. Maybe I'll upload a short. There's the brake booster. We get some depth in there. Did I drill this? I thought I drilled this. Did I drill this? I thought I drilled it. Oh, I did. There's the little nipple right there. Right there. And then from the side, the vacuum line will come. Okay. Now I remember. Alright, so enough yapping. I'm going to get to work. I don't know if I'll edit this. We'll see. But I'm going to proceed with adding a wash to add some depth to these parts. Okay? Talk to you in a few. Okay, I have the black wash and the sludge washes and pin washes as far as I want to take them before I start adding rust. I'm not going to add rust to the exhaust on this particular model because the story is that the exhaust was replaced and returned to a stock configuration. So once I show you what I'm about to show you in the interior, we're gonna move to rusting up the chassis a little bit. Getting some brown elements of weathering and washes and pigmentation onto the exhaust, but not necessarily rust. And then some rust spots that are on the suspension pieces, because if you remember, we did put a mahogany base and chip back to it in the last episode, or in the episode that was part 1 of the series. So let me show you this. I did apply a wash to the seats, and oh, by the way, guess what I found? Yay! These were the photo etch circles that I was looking for. The problem is those are ovals, so I'm going to have to paint them anyway. And these gauges right here, none of those circles is small enough to fit on there, so I'm going to have to paint it anyway. Oh well, what are you going to do? But I did apply a semi-matte finish to the interior after doing washes, and that semi-matte is the Alclad Clear Coat Semi-Matte ALC 312. I believe that this is a, even though it says Alclad 2 lacquer, I think that's the brand name, but this smells and acts like an enamel. So following the directions on the side, shake thoroughly before use. Now you'll notice, I just hurt my back stretching. See that? This is clear, and this is whatever the flattening agent is. I think it might be talc, whatever it may be. If you look on Alclad's line, if they're not shaken up, you could tell how flat it's going to be by the amount of this flattening agent on the bottom before you shake the bottles up. So I believe it'll go flat, matte, semi-matte, light sheen, and then they have a gloss that I never use their gloss. I usually use lacquer gloss or 2K. But I actually really like these clear coats for weathering, and these are my go-to for flattening out anything that I need when I'm building armor, airplanes, whatever the case may be. Whenever something needs to be flat or semi-gloss, those are the ones that I go to. So I did apply some like I said, some washes in there, and the look that I'm going for, now you see there's a little bit of sheen on there. The look that I'm going for is aged but not worn, well taken care of, but still, you know, cognizant of the age of the actual car itself. Not necessarily like these door cards were replaced, but they might have been detailed a couple of years ago, and they're looking okay, they're holding up well. And I just wanted to impart some dimensionality using the washes, and hopefully you'll see that sheen. That is the semi-matte sheen that goes along, and it kind of looks like vinyl, and not for nothing. I think that's a fairly good representation of the way well taken care of vinyl would look. So that's why I use it. And the same thing with the dashboard. Top of the dashboard, the dash pad. That's a pretty nice sheen. I mean, it's mostly reminiscent. It's not like, you know, your armor roll. The armor roll would leave like a glossy sheen on it. This just looks like a normal dashboard, and we'll get in there and with some silver paint we'll detail that up, and then we'll start putting this thing together. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move on, and we're going to start applying some brown washes to the exhaust, and then we're going to start adding some rust. All right, so I'm going to set up for that. Hold on. We are up to the point where we're going to be putting some pigments on to replicate the the graininess and the crunchiness of rust build up. I'm gonna put up a few pictures in a couple of minutes of the underside of a 71 Mustang. It's not necessarily a Mach 1. It's just, I was using it as a reference to get an idea of which direction I wanted to go as far as the overall weathering effects that I was looking for. So if you look over here, let me move these lights around so I don't. On this side, I've already done the application of the pigments in rust spots, like right here. These have been done already. And these have been done. And along here, that's been done already. And the reason why, like, you might notice, like, there's some white in here, like that ghosty white look. when I put the pictures up, you're gonna see that effect on the real car. So in a lot of genres of modeling, you always get people who will complain, oh, that's over weathered, oh, it's overdone, oh, it's too much. It's, you know, like, especially with aircraft, and I guess with cars too. But then again, we've all seen cars that are really beat to crap. I mean, we've all seen them. So this is not unrealistic weathering for a car that's still riding around. This is actually halfway decent shape. I mean, this is there's no holes in the floors. I mean, this car would still command a hefty price. So let's get to showing you how we're gonna do this. Now, if you see here in that spot right there, I got a little bit of pigment sitting there. That's the light rust pigments that I showed you in the introductory materials portion of this video. That is what's there now. In order to kind of mix that in and just work it into the surface, what I'm gonna do is I mixed up another batch of the sludge wash with the oil paint and the matte effect thinner. And while that's in there, get like enough, load the brush up enough so that you're imparting a little bit of pigment in there, but it's still basically still a wash. And you're gonna get that in there, and you're gonna watch how that tones down a little bit once we apply that in there. Now you might be saying to yourself, what did you just do? Chill. Everything's gonna be fine. Okay, so now to speed things up so you could see the effect, now, you see in there, it toned down the lightness of the rust while still leaving a little bit of it behind. And again, we're looking right there. So, we'll just keep going back and forth, adding pigments, adding wash, until we achieve what we're looking for. So right now is when I'm going to put up a picture of what I'm going off of. Okay, so what you'll see is a bit of the haze that is the light color, the dust color wash that we added. You could see some really crusty rust spots and an overall grime and filth and dirt. Now, I'm going to be putting up a picture of the mufflers from the reference photo that I was looking at. Now check out that goodness, that crusty, dirty, grimy. All right, you get a good look at it. So now here's what the muffler looks like on the model. You see why this is after an application of several washes, some raw umber pigments, and the airbrushing that you saw me do in the first part of the weathering series. Now, this isn't rusted out. It's supposed to represent, you know, a relatively new exhaust system, but one that's been traveling underneath a car for a couple of years now. It's dirty. So that's the effect, and I tried to match it with the other one. Let's see how I did. They look relatively similar, but you see how I'll put the picture back up now, and then I tried to get those spots that are on it and get that onto the muffler here. So that's what I was going for. Okay, and I'll show you the front suspension and the rear end, which I've done off camera. So now if you look right here, we got some, hopefully that, we got rust spots over here with a little bit of crustiness in here on the faces of the control arms. We still have a little bit of that dusty wash that's going on, and I've also added the black wash in areas where grime would collect in these recesses over here, so that we're not just representing dirt, we're adding a little bit of dimensionality. And then once all of this is locked in with the clear, it's gonna really pop, and it's really gonna pay off some dividends. Now you'll also see in the reference picture why I chose this color for the hardware. You'll see that alloy very often on cars. It's also in here, and used it on this and this. So, and I just tried to represent it as a little bit smashed up, not smashed up, but a little bit dirtied, grimy, with some spots of rust in here. So hopefully we achieve the overall effect. Same thing goes with the drive shaft. We've got some rust spots in it, as well as the rear end. Now this is a little bit grimier, and the way I'm going with this, now you'll notice that looks like a different. Usually I think the 9-inch rear ends in Mustangs were like a reddish oxide when they were stock. I'm using this to represent an aftermarket differential cover, because the owner replaced the racing gears that the previous owner had in order to make this a more streetable, something you could take onto the highway and not scream. So that's what I'm going for with that. But you'll notice like the crustiness of the rust in here. So that's what we're going for. And all of these things, once you spray them with the clear flat, they really do pop. Okay, so let's get to work. So in order to get this started, I'm just going to lay down some of the wash in the areas that I had chipped. And that's going to, you might see a product on some websites that's called Pigment Fixer. As near as I could tell, and I don't know for sure, and I'm sure I'll be corrected, like I always am, but you can use mineral spirits in replacement, as a replacement for that product. It's not going to harm you in any way if you just use mineral spirits, or even use a wash like this. You're using the wash to your advantage, because if you see that's pretty stark right there, those little spots. So we're going to use the wash, the sludge wash, to tone that down. We give that a little puff to get the excess off, and then we'll come in. And you could use like an umber wash for this. I would not recommend this. This tin right here is actually Rush Streaks, the pre-made wash that I showed you in the last video. Wouldn't be a good application for this. When we get to streaking we're going streaking. When we get to streaking this body later on in the series, we'll put this to really good use. It's not really what it wouldn't be my go-to for for this type of application. So let's get in here. We hit that. And this is actually rather fun. I really enjoy doing this. So you see that. It's gonna get nice and crusty. Yeah, the way that the cars rust is the paint, either it gets chipped or there's a microscopic hole. Water makes its way in. Water oxidizes the ferrous metal that makes up the underpans and the chassis of a vehicle. It oxidizes, it rusts, and it begins to corrode and rust away. So we're trying to represent how that happens in scale on a small basis. And there's no rush here. I'm just trying to do this a little bit quick because I don't want the video to be 11 hours long. I just looked. The video itself is already over an hour, but like I said, I got some information for you, so that's going to be my first run at it. Just be careful when you're applying. You don't want to really dig in with the mineral spirits, because you could do what I did there, which is create a slurry with the pigment. Not a big deal. And worst case scenario, worst case Ontario, you could just wipe this away. You might get a little bit of a streak, but like Bob Ross said, they're all happy accidents, especially in weathering. You know, it's hard to go. I mean, I guess there is a way to go wrong, but it's not as easy as it is to burn through on a high gloss finish. You know what I mean? You're trying to represent damage, so don't be surprised if you damage. So this is the medium rust pigment, which is gonna look darker once it gets hit. Now you notice in this little tin with the wash, there's still some gloops of solid oil paint, which is good. Sometimes you need that, because there's a technique that armor modelers use, and even aircraft. You could use it in anything, really, figure painting. It's called OPR, oil paint rendering. It's a really versatile product, oil paint. And I'd like to see it more widely used within the model car community, because I think we can achieve some pretty cool stuff with it. I don't know why, but my allergies are acting up. I think I might have been in a house today that had a cat in it. So now if you remember when I did the chipping, this is all going to be underneath the exhaust. So it's nice that it's going to be underneath there, but we can still hide a multitude of sins. Yeah, so like I was saying, I think I was in a house today that had a cat. Because my eyes are going crazy. Let's get a little bit of this wash in here. Now that we got the gist, I'll pop back in once I've accomplished more and have more to show you. Okay, hold on. I've gone around and applied the pigment to the rust spots that were chipped back, and then on some of them I've already begun applying more of the sludge wash, the oil paint sludge wash, with the matte effect thinner. Because that's what really like gets it into the surface, as if it's real rust, like crunchy, chipping, yucky rust. You know what I mean? If you look right here at this little rust spot right here, that looks basically just like powder on the surface. It doesn't necessarily look like a rust spot yet. But then once we add some of the oil paint wash, get it in there. Now notice I'm using the thinner brush now, almost like a pin wash, but we're getting in there like that. Get in there, too nice. There we go. There we go. So now you don't want to go in there and really start working it in, because then the rust pigment itself can like form a slurry, and it defeats the purpose. So now if you see, that's darker and it looks like, you know, it's crunchy. So then take the hair dryer and lock that in like that. Just give it a little bit, and now you see. Get a nice little rust-colored, crunchy area. And this is actually a lot of fun. If you've never weathered anything, there's a reason why weathering is so popular. It's a lot of fun. So, we're going to come in this spot right here. Make sure it's filming. Get in there, and then pick up a little more, come into here. Now a lot of this stuff is going to be obliterated by other surface details and other pieces that you're going to be adding to the chassis, like the suspension and the exhaust. But like I already showed you, we've weathered those, and I've tried to maintain a consistency in the weathering throughout, you know, like actually putting them in place or holding them over, so that it looks like all of these things have gone through the same horrors of being driven along a road. So we're going for verisimilitude here, the appearance of reality, whereas as opposed to reality or realism, where we'd be using actual rust. Okay, so this little spot right here, I got a little bit, I don't have enough, to my liking, I don't have enough rust pigment showing through. So just add a little bit more of the wash. Go in with some pigment. Give it a little puff. So now we got some more of that rust color on there. And then, ooh. Yeah, I gotta go, once I'm done with this stuff, I gotta clean off this this cutting board. Because this, all of the pigments and stuff like that, it makes it really dirty, so I gotta give it a good cleaning. I'm still not liking it, so I'm gonna go with the light rust. And doing stuff like this, it's why it's important to collect reference photos, to get a feel for which direction you're going to go in, whether or not, you know, like, if you second guess yourself while you're doing this, you can always just refer back to whatever reference photos you used, or if you have a car that's rusted out, go check it out. Go see what's going on. See if you can try to replicate it. See how that looks. So let's move along. I try not to stick my fingers onto what has already been done. Like I've been grabbing everything by the edges. It will come off on your fingers, but it's not really the end of the world. You could just reapply it. The process itself is generally very forgiving. Are you able to see what I'm even doing? Oh, sorry. This little spot right here is probably going to be underneath the suspension, but did all those spots. Yeah, so what I'll do now is I'm going to go along and pick out spots where I want to add more of this sludge wash to, not necessarily, I'm not going to work on the rust spots anymore. I'm just going to work on like these recesses and the lines along here so that I make sure I have a dimensionality, okay? And once that's done, I'll return. Finally, in washes, we are going to do a panel line wash on a car body. I have on here the little list of bits taken off of the tube of this Winsor & Newton Ivory Black oil paint. And take a little stick. Apply it, and then just go back and forth forever until you completely lose all of your patience and Hulk smash everything near you. Okay, I'm okay now. Then in this instance, I'm not going to use the matte effect thinner. I'm just going to use regular white spirit, mineral spirits. And I'm going to make sure I get this as thoroughly mixed as possible. I don't want really any gloopy bits. This is a situation where you can absolutely positively use the Tamiya Panaline accent color. But like I said before, I would recommend not using the brush that comes with it because of this reservoir, and there is the possibility that you could get it to spill out all over. This brush, this is a Tamiya modeling brush HF, item number 87048. I'll try to put a link to it in the description. This is my favorite brush for applying washes to the panel lines of model cars. So we'll get this mixed up. So in general terms, and to reiterate it, the reason why I prefer oil paint over enamel for washes is that I find the pigment more dense and to my liking. I like the richness and the saturation of it. I like its characteristics of being able to be pushed around on a surface. It just works out better for me. I just like the way it works better. I will use an enamel based. I have no problem using them. You know, there's nothing wrong with them. It's just that my preference is for the oil. Now, as far as an acrylic wash, one of the reasons why I don't use them is that I don't like having to overcome the surface tension issues with using an acrylic. And by surface tension, if you add water to acrylic paint, and I apologize if that sound of me mixing metal on metal like that is annoying, because it's slightly annoying to me. If you mix acrylic paint with water, you're going to notice that it beads up. And then when you apply it to a surface, it doesn't run like an enamel wash or an oil paint wash. It will tend to just bead up on the surface. That's surface tension. And that's not really desirable. So, look who's here. Here's the body to our 71 Mustang. All painted in Splash Paints light pewter with semi-gloss black down here, and I added the trim if you saw that video. Been working on this feller since April. Time to get you down the road. Oh yeah, the headline is red. What else? What else did we do? Oh, we found humps in the mold and corrected them here. And there was a little bit on this side also. Remove those. There's a video for that. There is a plethora of videos on this channel. So check them out. So I'm going to come in with that brush. I'm going to saturate. Get a feel for how it's looking. And you absolutely can, if you want, practice on a... Let's do that right now. Let's practice on a paint mule. So, you're going to see in here, you see in that door line? That's, and that right there, that stuff that's going on in that quarter right there. Yeah, that's why this body got sidelined. I had a catastrophic decal failure underneath some 2K, so this body became a paint mule. So we just get that in there, see how it runs. Now, you see the little bit of the overrun? Not a big deal. The beauty about using mineral spirits, particularly on top of a urethane or a lacquer, is that you should be okay. And like I've demonstrated, these go over all-clad aqua gloss clear fairly well also. So let's speed this up a little. Oh, heavens. Pardon. It's a Friday night. I'm very tired. So you just wipe away the excess. And it shouldn't really leave a stain behind. So, I like the consistency. I will apply it to my project. Now, I'm not going to do the whole car. I'm just going to do, let's do this panel line right here. Revell provides the door handles as a separate piece. That's cool. It's one less thing to foil. Foiled again. So, again, we're adding this type of wash in this instance for dimensionality and for the definition of an actual panel line. You know, we want this. We want this panel line to look like a door that opens, even though it doesn't. It doesn't have to be jet black. And it's not digging in. Nice. Now, and there's your panel line. Just has to be a hint. You could even use ink in this instance if you really wanted to. 2K is fairly resilient. Lacquer is fairly resilient. Lacquer generally won't respond too badly to mineral spirits, but I wouldn't do a sludge wash over lacquer. Could be asking for trouble. So, now, having done that, I think we are ready. And I see this? I'm going to leave that because this will stay like this. And even if it dries before I need it again, because I got to foil this body, this will probably last for several days. And then you just have to add mineral spirits to it anyway. So, it should be okay. And mineral spirits, this it's now a Friday night. I poured these mineral spirits into this little cup. I believe it was Sunday of this week, and they haven't really evaporated all that much. It's not like solvents will evaporate. If you leave, anybody who's ever left the cap off of their lacquer thinner knows that'll evaporate on you. This stuff will stick around for a little while, so no rush. Okay, now for the really, really cool part. We're going to do some clear coat on these weathered pieces. Okay, hold on a second. We're over at the spray booth now. We're going to be spraying some clear coat onto the weathered pieces. Remember what I was telling you about the all-clad clear? You could tell how flat it is by the amount of flattening agent when the bottles aren't shaken up. Here's a demonstration of that. As you could see, this bottle, which is there flat, has a significantly more greater amount of the flattening agent than this bottle does, and this is their semi-matte. I wasn't I wasn't lying to you. I don't lie to you. My pants just rung. What was that? Okay, that's flat. So first I'm going to be doing the semi-matte on parts of the car that are going to either I want them semi-matte because they're a focal point in the engine bay, like the air cleaner. I don't want them to be the dead flat that the all-clad flat gives, and it gives a very, very dead flat, which I really like. So we're probably tipping up close to 2 hours at this point. It's alright, it's good information. It's here if you want it, you know. You want to bail? Come back, watch it later? I ain't the boss of you. Sure, I could chop all this up into a 14-minute video and then have to answer 17,000 questions down in the comments, or I could just provide you with the information and then you could use it as a resource. Doing this for you because I love you. Especially if you made it this far in the video. You know how I roll. Put it down in the comments. Give me a wink. Put the fan on, Frank. Put it on low. Alright, so this is how, see the aqua gloss clear is on there now. So, and we've got the decals on there. So, watch the effect that this is gonna give. It's actually kind of cool. This is just air. How you doing? So as you can see, it took the shine down a little bit. There's still a little bit left, kind of like, you know, an air cleaner. You know, you could have a chrome. It will get you home. But, you know, this looks like a stock air cleaner. The decals are nicely blended in, even though in real life they're stickers that stand a little bit proud, but we're going for an effect here. Verisimilitude, not realism. The appearance of realism. Stop it. Here's the battery. Painted the caps red. The terminals are painted. They got a little bit of wash in them for some depth and dimensionality. We just hit them with a little, like it's almost like the clear coat is a seal of time. It's not new anymore. When you put a little bit of flat on it, something like when you buy a battery, it can be like it's got a little bit of a shine to it. But the longer it's been in your engine compartment, you know, the dust and stuff that collects on it makes it look like it's flatter. Probably should have said that earlier in the series. So this is the fan assembly, the accessory brackets. For a modern tooled kit, I would have liked to have seen brackets that mount to that locate to the engine. Otherwise, the kit's pretty good. Love you, Revell. Love you. But I think that's something we should have had on there. Okay, the semi-matte is done. I'm gonna set up now for the flat. Okay, now for the really fun part, the clear coat, the clear flat. I'm excited for all of us. This is actually fun. So if you take a look at the specularity and just the overall look before I apply the flat. We got our rust spots in, we have our dimensionality added with the pin washes and the sludge washes, and we're going to try to flatten everything out, and that will add a uniformity, but it'll also bring up like a desaturation of the black, making it just a little bit less black. You'll see. Hold on. Marked, much less specularity to that. The black is desaturated. The enhancement of the dust wash is starting to come through, but if you remember the reference photo, which I'll put up again now, that dust patina is something that I wanted to represent on this. So that's looking good so far. We'll look at it again under the lights over there. So I'm gonna do the rest. I'll spare you the sped up footage of it, and we'll meet over there, okay? Okay, it is the next day. My voice might sound a little weird. Last night, after filming the portions over at the spray booth, I went into anaphylactic shock and had to go to the emergency room. My throat started to close up. Took 3 shots of epinephrine to halt it and begin the reversal. So can't show my face because I'm all puffed up still. So one of the things you might have noticed when I showed you this part after applying the clear, you see this white area right there? That sometimes happens if you spray the all-clad flat clear coat too soon after applying a wash. It just reacts with the moistness of the wash. It's not a big deal. You just go back over it with the wash. So it happened here, here, and here. It happened in a couple of other spots, but I had already hit it with the wash. So, to demonstrate that, go. And again, this is the black wash made with Winsor & Newton Winton Ivory Black Oil Paint and Abteilung 502 Matte Effect Thinner, which I just ordered more of that, two more bottles of it from Burbank's House of Hobbies because I'm running out. Do that, we'll add that. And then we can just hit it with the hair dryer. speed things along. So there we have it. The blanching is gone. You could keep working it if you like. That's the thing, is when you're weathering, especially if you're weathering to a reference, keep going. That's it. Just keep going. Do as much or as little as you want. You can hear my daughter laughing upstairs at something. Now let's take a look at some of the other parts. If you remember, the air cleaner was getting a semi-matte. There's still just a little bit of a sheen on it, which I like. It's going to make a nice focal point for the engine, which looks pretty cool with the flat. I like the way it looks. It's still well enough taken care of, while looking, you know, dirty, dingy, and something that's on an operating vehicle. I like the way it came out. Is the front suspension, how that came out. Now, because the wash and the pigments were dry when I sprayed, I didn't get any blanching on this. So, if you do run into that with the all-clad flat, that's usually the case. The wash might have been moist or not fully dried. Moist. Here are the tailpipes. I brush painted the chrome ends on there with this stuff. Mira by Stuart Semple. It's hideously expensive, so I wouldn't mind. Yeah, I wouldn't blame you for not wanting to buy it, but I did. And I figured since I'm stuck with it, I might as well put it to good use. It does give a pretty convincing appearance of brushed on chrome for the most part. And here's the rear end housing, how that came out. I like the look of the wash in the recesses of the differential cover, and then like the crustiness of the rust throughout. So I like the way that came out. A little bit of blanching there, I'll hit that. These came out cool. The mufflers. Let me put them in where they're gonna go. I like the effect. So I think that came out cool. And overall, I think I achieved what I set out to do. Just to make something, you know, these are obviously not the original mufflers. Whoever owns the cars had the exhaust replaced. There's, you know, not a lot of corrosion. They're just dirty. Same thing with the gas tank. It's just dirty. It's not corroded. It's still in good shape. And the undercarriage, the floors and the pans, they're starting to show some signs of surface rust, and it's not the end of the world. You go in there with a wire wheel and hit them with rust prevention paint and keep it going for another 50 years. So, that said, I don't think I have anything else to show you. I'm going to put you on the tripod. We'll sum up. Hopefully, when I do the sum up portion of this video, my face doesn't look as bad as it looks right now. So hold on a second. Extra bonus footage. Looking at the editing at this video, this is up there. This is well over an hour, probably close to 2 hours at this point. So that means only my die-hard fans, folks who really take in my content, are gonna get to see this, which is good. It'll be our little secret. Don't say nothing. Don't tell anybody. But here's a sneak preview at the completed sub-assemblies before I put the thing together. I just spent the day putting the bare metal foil on. The body's already painted and polished, and got the decals on for the markers and the locks. Got to put the door latches on. Got the grill. It's looking pretty good. Here's the interior. How that's looking. There's the dashboard. Looking pretty nice. I like the subtle sheen that the semi-matte gives of the all-clad. Really liking that. Still got to put the door locks in, the buttons. And here we have the engine compartment. Let's hope that come on, this thing should focus. 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 Is it focusing? Oh, here's the engine compartment anyway. Nice. Doesn't look too bad. Looks basically the type that you would see at a Cars and Coffee when they keep the hood open so you could see. I got the battery cables on there. I got the electronic, the ignition box, that wired up. I got the spark plug wires, some vacuum hoses. Still gotta put the radiator in, but this is the part I know you guys want to see. There it is. That's what it looks like when it's finished. So you see we got the rust in there. Really digging these mufflers, how they came out. I'm really liking that. I'm liking the rust spots on the suspension. See if we get some more light in here, if that'll help. Really digging the rust spots on the suspension, on the rear end. Look at how crusty the rear end is. Nice. Got the gas tank, got the chrome tips. You know, your Cars and Coffee guy, he's going to make sure that those chrome tips look good. He's not necessarily going to Make sure that the undercarriage looks good. But these are fairly rudimentary techniques that aren't very difficult to learn or to accomplish. And I really think anybody watching this video, using the techniques that I gave you and the materials, with not that much of an investment, you could do this to every car. So now I'm going to actually put you on the tripod and say goodbye. Thanks for sticking in if you made it this far. Put it down in the comments if you did. So there you have it. Got a lot of stuff done. I understand it was a long video, but it's kind of my thing. It's what I do. Anyway, in the next part of the series, we are going to be painting, rusting out, applying all the techniques on this 1967 Chevelle SS. Well, it doesn't look like an SS now. It probably won't look like an SS when we're done, but it is going to look really, really messed up. And messed has two S's in it, SS. So stay tuned for that. We're going to be applying all the techniques that I used in the creation of that model on this in the next episode. Hopefully you found the information about washes and pigments and clear coats. Hopefully you found it useful. It's actually a lot of fun doing this kind of stuff. I love weathering models. I do it on armor, I do it on planes, and I do it on cars. You know, they can't all be shiny. In fact, most cars aren't showroom shiny custom rods. You know, they get dirty, they get old. So let's represent a few of them that way. That said, I appreciate you coming along for the ride. As always, I got Frizzo's back. I appreciate your support. Been through some pretty hairy stuff in the past couple of weeks, and I gotta be honest with you, the outpouring of love from this community has been very, very touching. I cannot thank you enough for folks that have just been reaching out, making sure I'm okay. It's heartening. I didn't grow up like that. People worrying about if I'm okay. But I'm doing a lot better. I'm getting there. I appreciate everything. Until we speak again, my friends, take care of yourselves and be well.